Understanding the genetics and the biology is very important, but when it comes to application in a multi-trait situation, the economics, understanding the economics is also very important. Jude Sise is now going to, from AbacusBio, is going to talk about the economics of breeding and the improvements and enhancements that have been made there. Thanks, Jude.
Thanks, Neville. So the first thing that some of you may notice is that I'm up here and not Tim. Tim Boone sends his apologies, he couldn't come today. So, you know, when we realised this, Peter and I flipped a coin. You guys lost and got me instead of Peter, but I put his name up there. And the other great thing about flipping the coin was Neville said, Jude, you can talk about whatever you want. So I'm probably going to deviate a little bit from what was in the paper, but it's a bit of a talk through the economics of breeding, and really it's all about, you know, what are the key questions that a breeder has to answer. So, you know, if I'm a sheep breeder and I want to sell rams to commercial farmers, you know, what traits am I focusing on? Is parasite resistance a problem for me? What about reproduction? What do my ram buyers want? But then once I've decided that, you know, I have to look at how I balance competing objectives. What's the relative value of each of those objectives, and then, you know, how much progress am I making and what's it worth? And I'm going to use this framework just to talk through some of the economic questions. So the first thing, what traits? You know, what I've put up here is a whole list of traits which we commonly record and we've got breeding values for. But, you know, there's actually quite a lot. And, you know, what does the breeder want? And that's a big question, because if you look at the data on SIL, people are selecting on all sorts of things. It's not one stop for all. Once you've actually selected your traits, then, you know, how do they compete with each other? And what I've got up here is just a graph of, this is some real breeder data, of progress made in weaning weight and ewe weight. So basically everyone wants their lambs to grow fast, we want big lambs, we want to kill them early. And that's, you know, weaning weight is one of the key drivers within our economic index, but the trouble is weaning weight's also linked pretty closely to ewe weight. So if you want bigger lambs, often you have bigger ewes. And this is a bit of a competing objective. And that was what Mark was talking about before, as we've been, you know, looking at the weighting that needs to go on adult ewe weight, the penalty to actually go, can we get bigger lambs without getting the bigger ewes? So that's a key thing in the objectives. So dealing with that. When we think, how do we actually deal with that, I thought I'd use reproduction as an example. So basically what we need to do is we need to calculate some economic weight. So if I'm a sheep, a ewe, and I have one lamb, or I'm a sheep and I have 3 lambs, you know, what does the farmer want? You know, 3 lambs is 3 carcasses. That's 3 times as much money. You know, so, you know, why doesn't everyone just aim for triplets? Well, the question is that you know, triplets actually take more, and if we're looking at the economics, we actually have to look at the profit you get off those lambs. So 3 lambs is 3 carcasses, but you have to look at the extra costs that it requires to grow that lamb. So the profit calculation that we work on is adjusted for whether the lamb will be born as a single, a twin, or a triplet. And one of the exercises we have actually done is looking at selecting for singles, twins, and triplets separately. But if you actually look at the costs, you know, multiple lambs take longer to get to slaughter, so you know, you've got to feed them more. You can lose money because the price schedule drifts down. If you can get your lambs growing fast, you get that early season premium. And there's also, if you have triplets, you know, it's pretty hard on the ewes, and, you know, and their death rate goes up. So when we work out the economic value that we're putting on things, we have to look at those 3 carcasses, but also look at the cost of production. So I'm just going to flip straight out. These are a whole lot of cost of productions that have been worked out. These are the index weightings that were redone in 2012. And so if we look at that first one, the economic weight for number of lambs born is set to 2,231 cents. What that says is extra lamb in your index is worth $22. You know, that's what it's worth per ewe mated. Weaning weight is worth about $1.36 a kilo, and carcass weight $3.74 a kilo. These are the weights that we're putting on in our indexes when we want to calculate the sum of all the improvements you're making in genetics. And down here, here's this penalty on ewe weight. So if up here we've got weaning weight at, you know, we're selecting for weaning weight at $1.36, and we're selecting against adult ewe weight. And we're trying to balance out the ewes getting too bigger. Now this slide here is actually what breeders get from SIL. So it's actually a SIL selection list. It's the front page. And I just put this up here because down here, here's all the different sorts of things that breeders can select on. And this particular guy here is using a dual purpose production index. So this is one of the indexes Mark's talked about. And in this version of the truth, it's got adult ewe size, it's got growth, it's got meat, it's got reproduction, it's got survival, it's got twinning, and it's got wool. So quite a lot of things in that index. And down here is how we calculate all the indexes. So here's the one for adult ewe size. It's the breeding value for adult ewe size times the economic weight applied against adult ewe size. And I've just looked at this and realised that this is actually quite an old one because that minus 72 has since been upgraded to minus 149. So this is just an old selection list I put up. But basically, breeders are using these, and some of them are using standard indexes and the standard weightings, and some of them are customising them themselves. And, you know, it's actually quite complicated. And so one of the things that we've been doing with beef and lamb genetics is looking at how, as we get more and more information and more traits and EBVs and MBVs and, you know, the whole shebang, yeah, how do we simplify that a little bit for breeders? And we're actually, you know, that's a key focus of one of beef and lamb genetics programs, is how do we present information in a way that is really accessible? And Mark's talk about standard indexes fits in here, that we can actually have one index that we can look at everyone on. So let's now jump forward to an index. This is real index data from one of my favourite flocks. So along the side here, we've got birth year. And then here, what we've done is we've taken all the breeding values, multiplied them all up with the economic weights, and I've plotted average merit within years. So this is like a genetic trend graph. And one of the key things is that, you know, merit is obviously going up in this flock, but the rate at which it goes up varies. So, you know, between here and here, they didn't make that much progress. Then they had a really steep climb. Then they actually came back a little bit and did something, and then they had another climb. And this is pretty typical. So when we're assessing what's going on a farm, you know, we have to take all of these things into account. Now, bearing that in mind, if you were to put a straight line through all of these last 4 points of data, then you can actually look at rates of genetic gain over time. So what this graph shows is average index merit along this axis, and this y-axis here shows the rate of change as an annual improvement in index on an annual basis. And what I've effectively done is I've taken the SIL-age data set, it was 2015, April 2015, and I've used that to look at rates of genetic progress and merit over time. So this is the results from the 2011 to 2014 born lambs. I haven't just taken a single year because in these things there is variation, so it's pretty hard to just go, whoa, I'm here. I've actually looked at it as an average of a 4-year period to try and even out some of these differences. And then I've plotted them according to, are they above average for rate of gain? So all of these blue and orange ones above the line, they're making faster annual rates of gain than all the ones, the yellow and grey ones beneath the line. So the rate at which they're improving is higher. If you look at the axis this way, these ones here are of higher merit. So even these guys down here are below the line in terms of gain. They're actually still above average for merit. And in actual fact, if you look at these ones here, they're doing really, really, really well. So maybe they've taken the foot off the pedal and they're actually moving away from the production traits and looking at other things. You know, we don't know. But when I first presented this last year to the Breeders' Forum, there was a huge amount of interest in it, because the thing is, if you take the average of all of these and then actually convert them into what does it mean to a commercial buyer. So now I'm a commercial farmer and I want to go and choose some rams from a breeder. The value that that's worth over 15 years varies a lot, because we actually know what the benefits are. If you calculate the marginal differences between buying rams from one breeder versus another, you know, where they are with merit and what they're doing makes a big difference to the commercial value. And, you know, I don't want to go on about this too much, but over 15 years, it's a difference from about 60,000 up to, you know, in this particular model, what is that, 160,000. Yeah, that's a lot of money. that's a big difference. And the commercial farmers are really interested in this, and so are the breeders, because they all want to know, where do I sit on this? And so I guess, you know, economics does make a big difference, and it makes a difference for the ram breeders, but it makes even more of a difference for the commercial farmers, what's happening on farm, because they're the ones who are sending all the lambs off to slaughter. So my final slide is, you know, how do we use this information? And this is actually a slide I took from another talk, but for the breeders in the room, there's this tool out there called Flock Finder. And what that lets people do is get onto their cell phone and go, show me all the Romney breeders in my area. And then they can look and find where the Romney breeders are and who they should go to. You know, I guess is one of the logical extensions is, you know, they can find the flock, but should they be able to know how that breeder's doing? I don't know. These are key questions for beef and lamb genetics to grapple with. But some of the things that we're looking at developing is, you know, these sorts of benchmarking tools so breeders can show that information and show the value of genetics, because it's really hard just looking at genetic trends, what does it mean? Whereas when you put it into dollars, it's like, well, you really get people's attention. So we're looking at, you know, developing some sort of value calculators, which, you know, you can look at the marginal value of this ram versus that ram. We're looking at the farm genetic plan, which is what Mark was talking about earlier, and that's all about looking at what's going on a commercial property and can you align performance with genetics. Because on a commercial property, you might buy the best genetics in the world, but if you don't feed them, you don't get the money out. So, you know, there's a whole lot of questions in here, and what we're actually looking to do is to develop tools around that. And the underlying economics are really critical. So how we set those indexes, what the economic weights go on them, and what people want is of key interest to us. And that's it.
John.
Jude, were the wobbly sort of rates of gain that you showed us,
Yep.
was that corrected for environmental effects between years?
Those are the estimated breeding values off sill. So it's been through the sill models, and that is real data from a sill-ace participating flock.
Okay, thank you, Jude.